Disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976 allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit educational or personal use. Tips the balance in favor of fair use. Colombiana.
¿Qué pasa? ¡Agacha!
Ya pasó. Ahí ya guarda. ¡Rápido!
Jimmy.
¿Qué sucede?
Alguien trató de matarme.
¿Qué?
Pues ponlo en el teléfono.
Tiene que ayudar.
Solo pon a Teo en el puto teléfono. Hablas conmigo. ¿Quién dijo eso? ¿De qué hablas? ¿Qué tan cercano? Irían primero con él. Ni siquiera puedo ir con mi propia gente. Los posee a todos.
Oye, oye.
Es diferente. A mí... No para ti.
¿Vamos a seguir juntos?
No sé.
Hagamos algo.
Si compras algo, si rentas un video. Mira, puedes estar en Iowa y pueden... ¿Qué?
Para Debbie.
¿Le dijiste dónde estamos?
Momento.
¿Tiene identificador de llamadas?
¿En moteles baratos y comer basura?
¿Le diste tu número? Sí. Nos quedaremos otro.
¿A dónde va?
Tal vez no lo pensé bien, pero todos estos años, tú sabes que él ha pasado. ¿Por qué no?
Todos los buenos tiempos, pero lo siento.
¿El FBI? ¿Qué es lo...? No puedo... Las cosas siguen empeorando. Solo haz que desaparezca.
Bobby B. Batman. Actualmente presidente del club de la Asociación del Partido Demócrata Jamás y extorsión de Teo Cruz. ¿Eh? ¿Ustedes rezan juntos? ¿Eso crees? Tenemos una... Atraviesas mi puerta caminando. Es algo... Tanto no... Cuando Teo decidió asesinarte, aparecen.
Pues arrésteme.
Queremos a Teo más que a ti. No solo por una estúpida acusación por juego. Fredo Mali y Frank Wynn. No. Entraste aquí. Veniste a nosotros, recuerda. Puto suelo ahora mismo. Bobby. Vemos al sujeto que intentó liquidarte.
A Jimmy Stinch que...
Más alto.
Y Teo puso un arma en la boca de O'Malley y Jimmy que colgara a Frank Wynn por el cuello. Teo en persona hasta matarlo. Horas.
Firme este contrato. Diciendo que repetirás esto.
Oh.
¿Sabes qué, Bobby?
Es familia. Cariño, los federales dijeron...
¿Los que somos?
¿Qué somos? Por favor, mamá, dijimos que no haríamos esto. Nosotros.
Abuelo, guardaré para ti. Este fue de excelencia en periodismo.
Aquí llevar una vida normal.
Ya llegaron.
¿También, chicos?
Aunque 7.
El portatrajes cuenta como valija.
Y el perrito debe...
Quiero pedirle por última vez que entregue cualquier arma que tenga en su...
Dios, Frank, ¿viste eso?
Tranquila, tranquila.
Enfrente de...
Perrito, tú lo dijiste.
¡Valijas! ¡Ahora son 7 valijas!
No pasa nada, tranquila.
¡Llene a mis hijos de veneno para que odien a su padre!
Adiós, abuela.
No te
Adiós.
Mi niña. Yo lo cuidaré, niño. Te pondré tu abrigo. Ven.
Adiós, papá. Ay, por Dios, no.
Manténganse en silencio. No digan quiénes son.
Favor de abordar una puerta seca.
Colombiana 2 2025. Hello. Friends, welcome back to my channel. Friends, this is not a movie, this is a full detail review and fact video about this movie. If you want to know about this movie, then you must like this video. Because in today's video we will tell you what is its story, which actors and actresses have worked in this film. The director, producer, cameraman of this film is going to talk about them in detail. We will talk about the post-production, pre-production budget and filming of this film. The star cast of the film will also give details about the supporting cast and production guys. If you want to know about this movie, you must watch this video. You will find all the details of this movie in this video. What is the story of this movie? If you like this video, then share it with your friends and subscribe our channel. Colombiana 2 in 2025 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Colombiana 2225 brings back the fierce Cattle Restrepo, portrayed by Zoe Saldana, on another journey of vengeance and justice following the events of the first film, where Catalia took down the men responsible for her parents' deaths. She now faces an even more dangerous challenge, a deadly syndicate that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Plot overview. The story begins with Catalia trying to lead a quieter life, having partially escaped the violent shadows of her past. She's found a small semblance of peace, living under a new identity in a remote village in South America. However, rumors of a powerful crime syndicate known as the Silver FWNN begin spreading. This syndicate, notorious for trafficking and large-scale corruption, has a reputation for wiping out entire communities that resist them. When the Silver Fawn arrives in Calia's village, its enforcers inadvertently bring her back into a world she was hoping to leave behind. Kia's conflict. The Silver Fawn quickly realizes they've made a grave mistake in provoking Catalia, as she is once again drawn into a spiral of vengeance. The villagers rally around her as she becomes their guardian angel and protector, but Catalia realizes this fight isn't just about one village, it's about something Far larger than Silver Fawn has ties with corrupt politicians, international drug trafficking, and even some of her old enemies who have resurfaced to hunt her down. New characters and allies. Catalia encounters a skilled hacker NCO who was once a part of an underground cyber group before being forced into hiding after a run-in with the Syndicate. Together they work to expose the Syndicate's activities and weaken its network. Nico brings in an additional level of danger but also emotional complexity as he begins to see Catalia as more than just a skilled assassin, and Catalia's struggle between vulnerability and survival becomes a key narrative point. Rising tension as Catalia and Nico move deeper into dismantling the Syndicate. They face betrayal, loss, and increasingly lethal confrontations. Kalia's dark past is constantly referenced, testing her resilience as she confronts her own violent tendencies. This is not just a battle against enemies but against her inner demons, particularly when the Syndicate's head, a man known as El Auron, begins targeting innocent people close to her, forcing Catalia into a corner where no one is safe. Climactic showdown. The film's climax brings Catalia face to face with Al Alacran in an intense showdown at the Syndicate's high-tech isolated compound deep in the jungle. Here Catalia has to fight not only to save herself and those she's come to care about, but also to find some form of redemption. The fight is raw, unforgiving, and shows her full capabilities as she takes down the Syndicate's most elite guards, battling for justice and closure. Ending the film ends with Catalia once again alone but at peace, knowing she has avenged those who suffered at the hands of the Silver FW, and Nico returns to his underground network with a promise that he'll be there if she ever needs him. Catalia, with scars both visible and hidden, walks into the sunset, symbolizing her endless fight for justice and the price of survival. Overall tone: the sequel maintains the gritty, high-stakes action and intense emotional stakes of the original with a more in-depth exploration of Catalia's psyche. Colombiana 2 promises to deliver heart-pounding action while diving into questions of loyalty, vengeance, and the cost of a life lived in shadows. Plot for Colombiana 2 2025. Colombiana 2 takes us back into the ruthless, high-octane world of Catalia Restrepo, portrayed once again by Zoe Saldana, set several years after the events of the first movie. This sequel delves into themes of legacy, redemption, and the relentless pull of a past riddled with violence. Act 1: the come before they storm. Since avenging her parents' deaths, Catalia has managed to stay under the radar, living quietly in the remote village of San Miguel, deep within the jungles of South America. Under an assumed identity, she sought peace, and the villagers view her as a mysterious but protective figure. Catalia has begun to soften, even building connections with some villagers, including a young girl, Camila, who looks up to her, but her tranquil life is shattered in a powerful cartel known as the T Silver FWNN begins expanding its territory, headed by the ruthless and elusive leader known only as Elena Scorpion. The Syndicate engages in drug trafficking, arms dealing, and human exploitation. San Miguel is targeted due to its strategic location for trafficking routes, and the cartel wastes no time making its presence known through violence and terror. Act 2: Cat Alia resurfaces when Silver Fawn enforcers assault San Miguel. Catalia is forced to reveal her skills defending the villagers with lethal precision. Witnessing her unmatched ferocity there, cartel quickly realizes that Catalia is no ordinary resident. Her actions gain Notoriety in El Allen becomes intrigued by rumors of La Tigresa the Tigress defend. In a small village during one skirmish, Catalia meets Nico, a former hacker from a European activist network footprint, and offers to help her in exchange for protection, though hesitant to work with anyone. Catalia recognizes NCO's skills and agrees, seeing an opportunity to disrupt the cartel on a larger scale. Act 3: The fight for justice and survival. With Nico's help, Catalia begins targeting the cargo's digital infiltration. She discovers the compound's weaknesses and embarks on a deadly mission, navigating treacherous terrain and fending off the cartel's relentless mercenaries. Nico provides remote support but is eventually captured, forcing Catalia to accelerate her plan to rescue him and confront El Allen directly inside the compound. Catalia encounters a labyrinth of traps and ruthless guards. With her experience and brutal efficiency, she eliminates them one by one, her skills in combat and survival proving unmatched. Finally, she faces El Alacran, who is revealed to be a former military strategist with a personal vendetta against anyone who challenges his empire. Act 5: The final showdown. In a heart-pounding confrontation, Catalia and El Alacran engage in a brutal fight. Despite his strength and cunning, he is no match for Catalia's agility and resolve. After a relentless battle, Catalia defeats El Alacran, avenging Camila's death and liberating San Miguel and the surrounding communities from the cartel's control. She frees Nicaho, though injured, vows to continue using his skills to expose criminal organizations and fight for justice. Catalia realizes that while she may never escape her violent past, she can at least use her skills to protect the innocent. Epilogue: A New Legacy. The final scene show Catalia leaving San Miguel. Now a folk hero among the villagers, she walks away from her temporary home with a sense of purpose, determined to confront other syndicates and criminals that prey on the defenseless. Nico, now a trusted ally, goes underground but promises to stay in touch, hinting at a network of allies who share her mission. Catalia is once again on her own, but has evolved from a lone avenger into a beacon of resistance against injustice, embarking on a journey that might finally bring her peace if only she can survive the path ahead. Production background: Colombiana 2225 builds upon the cult status of the original Colombiana 2011, a film that combined pool-pounding action with a deeply personal revenge plot. Directed by Olivia Megaton and written by Luc Besson and Robert Mark Kamen, the first film brought viewers into the dangerous world of Catalia Restrepo, a fierce assassin driven by vengeance for her parents' murders. Over the years, the film has gained a dedicated fan base, fueling demand for a sequel that would delve further into Calia's complex character and offer closure, or perhaps a new beginning for her story. Director: The reins of Colombiana 2 have been taken up by filmmaker David Leitch for his work on action-packed films like John Wick, Atomic Blonde, and Hobbs, and shot his flair for meticulously choreographed action sequences combined with narrative depth and character exploration makes him a fitting choice to take Calia's journey to new levels. Production studio and writers: produced by Europa Corp and Sony Pictures. The script has been penned by emerging screenwriters known for their work in gritty dramas, focusing on a narrative that emphasizes character development alongside high-stakes action. With a reputed director and dedicated writing team, Colombiana 2 promises to be a worthy successor with strong character focus and cinematic appeal. Underscore encore 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 encore. Encore 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 encore. Underscore underscore underscore. Underscore underscore plot summary in Colombiana 2 Catalia Rio played once again by Zoe Saldana has attempted to leave her violent past behind, seeking solace in a quiet life in the secluded South American village of San Miguel. However, peace is fleeting when a ruthless cartel known as the Silver FWNN, led by the enigmatic El Alan Na Scorpion, encroaches upon her new home. They unleash terror on the villagers, capturing and killing innocents and forcing Catalia back into action. Catalia, joined by a skilled hacker named Nick, who shares his own vendetta against the cartel, sets out on a path to destroy the syndicate. NCO becomes her tech-savvy ally, helping her disrupt the cartel's network from the inside. Together, they attempt to bring down the powerful criminal empire facing betrayal, violence, in a fight for survival. The climax sees Catalia confronting El Alacran in his high-security jungle compound, leading to an intense showdown that tests both her physical prowess and emotional resilience. Underscore encore encore underscore encore 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 underscore encore 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 casting and performances. Zoe S.A. reprises her role as Catalia, bringing a depth of experience in portraying both physical action and emotional ability. Sauce portrayal is expected to delve into the toll of a life spent in shadows, showcasing a blend of fierce determination and subtle moments of inner encore themes and tone. Colombiana 2 is not just an action movie, it carries underlying themes of redemption, inner peace, and the price of vengeance. The film carefully deposes Kalia's violence. Skill deals with her longing for a more peaceful existence, giving audiences a deeper look into the toll that constant combat and isolation have taken on her psyche. One, redemption and legacy. The movie dives into Kala's emotional journey as she grapples with the effects of her vengeance-driven life. Her bond with the villagers, particularly a young girl named Camila, gives her a glimpse into what life could be beyond violence, while her alliance with Nico introduces trust into her world of calculated caution. To justice versus revenge. In this sequel, Kia fight transcends personal vendetta and enters the realm of social justice as she strives to protect her new community. The shift offers a refreshing complexity to her character, making her a hero not just for herself, but for others. 3, sacrifice and survival. The narrative unflinchingly shows the stakes and sacrifices involved, especially when innocent lives are caught in the crossfire. These themes stability for audiences familiar with action tropes, parts of the plot such as Catalia seeking redemption or a climactic battle against the cartel leader may feel somewhat formulaic to dark tone. The movie's unrelenting tone of violence and tension may be off-putting for viewers looking for lighter action fare. Underscore encore 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 underscore encore encore Encore. Encore conclusion Colombiana 2 is positioned to be a thrilling, thoughtful successor to the original, delivering on both action and character depth. The movie's darker themes, complex characters, and polished action sequences make it a promising film that respects and expands upon its predecessor, honoring the legacy of Catalia Restrepo while offering something fresh and intense with a strong creative team, a compelling plot, and stellar performances. Colombiana 2 is likely to captivate fans of the original while earning new admirers for its unapologetic exploration of vengeance, justice, and survival. Colombiana 2 in 202.25 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Let's discuss previous parts. Colombiana is a 2011 French-English language action thriller film kitten and produced by Luc Besson and directed by Olivier Megaton. The film stars Zoe Saldana, supporting roles by Michael Vaughn, Cliff Curtis, Lenny James, Callum Blewin, Jordi Mula. The film is about Catalia, a 9-year-old girl in Colombia whose family is killed by a drug lord 15 years later. A grown Catalia seeks her revenge. The film had a generally unfavorable reception from critics, but Sona's performance and action sequences were praised. It grossed $63.40 million against a $40 million production tie-in budget. Plot: in 1992 in Bogota, Colombia, drug baron Don Luis Sanval sends his enforcer Marco and a gang of armed men to kill his gang member Fabio Restrepo and his family because Fabio has defied him by trying to leave his prolific drug crime activity behind. Fabio gives his 9-year-old daughter Catalia a smart media computer memory card loaded with information on Don Luis' business and tells her it's her passport. He also gives her the address of her Uncle Elio in Chicago, Illinois, who will take care of her. Finally, he leaves her with her mother's Catalia orchid necklace after Fabio and his wife Alicia are gunned down. Catalia escapes and seeks asylum at the U.S. Embassy. She is granted passage to the United States after handing over the memory card to embassy staff, although American officials attempt to transfer her into the foster care system. Catalia tracks down her uncle in Chicago and asks him to train her as a killer. 15 years later, in 2007, a grown Catalia has become an accomplished assassin. Emilio serves as the lives of his own family, but she admits that she does not care about the risk to his family while she is spending the night with her American boyfriend Danny Delaney. He takes a photo of her sleeping and then shows it to a friend, who then decides to run a background check on Catalia, which alerts the FBI. Meanwhile, FBI agent James Ross is working to identify the killer behind more than 20 unsolved murders, all of which have Catalia orchids left behind. He gets a pin on Calia's photo from the background check and orders her arrest. But Catalia escapes and reaches out to Alo, only to find that she has indeed caused the brutal slaughter of Alo and his entire family. She confronts Ross at his home and threatens to kill him and his entire family, forcing him to reach out to CIA agent Steve Richard, who she knows is sheltering Dom Lu from the lot in exchange for his cooperation with American authorities. When she threatens to slaughter Richard's family, Richard gives for the Don's location. Dom Lu learns that Catalia is still alive and organizes his men to kill her, but she ambushes them first and wipes out the entire gang, including Marco. Don flees and swears revenge. Catalia, having planted her specially trained attack dogs in his escape vehicle, orders them to eat day alive. Danny is interrogated by Ross. Catalia calls him from a payphone. They Talk briefly before Ross grabs Danny's phone, but Kat Alia hangs up, leaving town. On a bus, cast Zoe Saldana as Katel, contract killer who seeks revenge when her drug-dealing father and mother are murdered by their criminal associates. Jordi Mola as Marco, Don main enforcer and the man who executed Kalia's parents while she watched Lenny James as Ross, FBI special agent tasked with investigating Kalia assassinations. Amanda Stenberg as 10-year-old Kat Alia. Callum Blue as Richard's CIA agent who arranged Don Lee relocation in cooperation. Cynthia Dye Robinson as Alicia Kia's mother, who is killed along with her husband Jesse Goss. Fabio K's father and a drug business partner of Don Lu, who was ordered killed when he tried to quit the criminal life. Ophelia Medina as Mama. Emilio's mother Angel Jica as Pepe. Emilio's father Sam Douglas as Willie. Ward Graham McTavish as Head U.S. Marshal. Warren Max Martini as Agent Robert Williams. Bonnet say Don Luis, a Colombian drug lord who ordered the killing of Kalia's family. Then K. Deal with the CIA. Michael Vaugh as Danny Dylan, Kalia boyfriend and artist. He knows Kat Alia as Jennifer. Cliff Curtis as Elio Restrepo, K's uncle and prof killer who raises and trains her after her parents were killed. Production. The script for Colombiana was based on Matilda, which was originally written by Luc Besson as a sequel to L.A. and The Professional. After a disagreement with the Gaunt Film Company on how to proceed with the film, Besson and director Olivier Megaton reworked the script into a standalone film. Filming began in August 2010 in locations including Chicago, New Orleans, Mexico, and France. The film was produced by Bess's Europa Corp Company and the script was written by Besson and Robert Mark Kamen, David Martin Jones, and an essay written for Senses of Cinema stated that the film was likely to have been perceived by audiences to be an American Hollywood wood production, noting that aping the look of a Hollywood genre film with a non-honest twist had been used in previous European films. Reception. Critical response on the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes. 28% of 107 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 4.9 SL10. The website's consensus reads: Zoe Saldana has the chops, but she's taken out by erratic and sloppy filmmaking. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 45 out of 100 based on 22 critics indicating mixed or average reviews. Christy Lammer of the Associated Press reviewed Colombiana, writing, Cinema. David Martin Jones focused on a different aspect of the South American character, believing that the film provided a different perspective concerning immigration and international wealth inequality. He notes that a character from the global South wreak havoc on the wealthy and corrupt in the global North, offering a different perspective than is usually seen in a Hollywood blockbuster. Box office. Colombiana grossed $36.7 million domestically, United States and Canada, and $26.80 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $63.50 million against a budget of $40 million. It opened at number 2 in the first of its 3 consecutive weeks in the top 10 at the domestic box office. Sequel at the 2015 See Europe, when the production house Europa Corp announced upcoming films. It mentioned that Colombiana 2 was in 2011. A part of me wants to agree with him, but another part wants to blame the lack of quality of Hollywood's action blockbusters for this regrettable situation, and the latter part is talking louder to my conscious brain. I don't really care about things blowing up all over my screen if there's no John Lon walking through the wreckage. To be there on time to pick up Holly in. The kids, I had high hopes that Colombiana wouldn't buy into cheap thrills after seeing the trailer. I always fancy female action movies as they are a nice change of pace from the male angst-ridden bullet fests I usually watch despite being technically sound. Colombiana did not live up to my expectations at all, seeing who was behind it. Now I wonder why I got my hopes up in the first place. Colombia is an awful place to be a criminal in. Olivier Megaton's movie working in bad as drug market is like working public function in the US. You're more likely to be on somebody IES payroll than to become Scarface. It's a little racist, but I can deal with that. Catalia Rio Saldana learns this the hard way when her parents are murdered by the henchmen of Don Levy Bonnets back when she was a child. That moment defined her whole existence. She goes on exile to her uncle Marco Jordi Mola best place and learns the quirks of being an assassin. By the time she turns 24, she is a stone cold, highly skilled professional who works for her uncle, but she is devoured by her need for vengeance. All of her life has been building up that moment where she would cross path with Don Lease. Again, I have two main problems with Colombiana. First of all, Catalia Restrepo isn't exactly a female protagonist. As much as she's a male fantasy, she's sexy, athletic, performs killings worthy of Sam Pfizer admiration _encore without calling back or almost asterisk, and devotes her life to kicking ass and taking names instead. Sando, this movie really messes with my suspension of disbelief. While the action is slick and well filmed, there were many of those wait-minute moments where my good intentions towards Colombiana were seriously challenged. For example, that escape she made from Dom Lagon through the streets of Bogota, where child Catalia Amon Leonard looked like an Olympic hopeful for the gymnastics team more than your average privileged 9-year-old. I can believe a 9 years old to be savvy and streak-wise, but being actually more savvy and streak-wise than seasoned killers that are plot relevant. Asterisk come on its bad end. It's just one example. It's sad and very __ frustrating. Because Colombiana has its moments, some scenes gripping and beautiful. For example, towards the beginning of the movie, Catalia is going on a job in Mexico where she was to eliminate a fraudulent banker type. At one of the best filmed action sequence I've seen in 201. The way it's scripted, the way the tension goes up, it's brilliant. There are a few of those scenes in Colombiana showing that this story had potential. I know I'm asking much of the Olivier Megaton Luc Besson, who has provided us great movies like HDA Transporter 3, while Beston used to write good movies. The Fifth Element, they Taxi series, the last decent script he wrote. Unfair to complain about the things that didn't work in this movie, since it's all the things that never seem to work in 90% of the action films out there. Its logic and story structure is a complete mess. There are so many scenes where characters say things that make almost no sense and do things without much consequence that you can't imagine how they were ignored. Catalia Zoe Saldana decides, after seeing her mother and father murder by whom I can only assume is the big drug kingpin in Colombia, that she wants to become a killer so as to be able to enact revenge. Part of her grand scheme is, since she doesn't know how to find her parents, kill her to smoke them out by marking each of her amazing murders with a message that only she and these men would understand. However, since it's such a peculiar detail, the authorities refuse to release it to the press until 4 years later. Now you would imagine that either the police would use the same loic for. Why for years later they decide to release this information a lot earlier, therefore pushing their story alone, or Catalia would realize that this message isn't getting out and do something different. There's a scene where a mellow Cliff Curtis shoots randomly around a school in broad daylight on a whim to prove a point to young Catalia. I find it immensely hilarious how he never has to worry about the police or anyone seemingly staring directly at him as he takes his time to expose his reasoning for why Kalia needs to do things his way. Also, there's a romance ongoing with Catalia and Danny Michael Vaugh that makes almost no sense. We don't see the beginning of it, and it's very obvious that SAA's character is using this man just for sex pretty much. However, it's also obvious that this man wants more, and it seems that this arrangement I do sham relationship and has been going on for a few months at least, due to the way they interact. Who is his friend that immediately sends a photo of his supposed girlfriend to the DMV identification without thought? This makes no sense other than a painfully obvious plot point used to get their police closer to Catalia. When the talking ends and the bullets start whizzing by, the film is fun enough to truly enjoy. The only problem with that is that when it's time for Catalia to exact or revenge, the action film style changes from this exact science of a killing to a free-for-all brawl that Saldana enters into, and immediately due to chaotic film making, the action becomes too hard to decipher. Catalia Amanda Stenberg watches as her parents are murdered in front of her at the age of 9, given instruction by her father beforehand. Catalia flees Colombia and winds up in Chicago with her uncle Curtis one day. Impossible, the film's most preposterous scene. Catalia tells her uncle she wants to be a killer, to which he pulls out a gun and murders a driver in the middle of a busy street in broad daylight, apparently as a way of illustrating that she should stay in school to become a more efficient killer. Of course she does, and we jump forward 15 years to a grown Catalia now going by the name Jennifer, faking a DUI to get inside a specific jail to slip through some air vents and murdering important prisoners staying in one of the cells. She marks the body with a rare or only found in Colombia, as she has with her previous 22 kills, in an attempt to get press attention and draw out the men responsible for her parents' death. What happens from then is a mess of poor acting, silly action scenes, and utterly pointless dialogue. Every single character in this film is so utter one-dimensional that any dialogue they have is there to service the plot and nothing more. The only attempt to flesh out any character comes through a horrendous subplot involving Michael Vaugh as Danny Kaye's casual lover, who fills the archetypal woman's role of pining after the mysterious, emotionally detached assassin. The scenes between the two are so poorly handled by all involved that they just come across as funny. The turgid love scenes aren't even the worst thing in the film. One terribly directed fight scene trying desperately for Bourne style grip sees Catalia facing off against her arch nemesis with a towel and 2 toothbrushes. There are numerous scenes of the FBI using computers that can seemingly perform miraculous acts of searching and matching data in a split second, which even becomes pivotal to the plot on more than one occasion. The final face-off dare not be spoiled here, but could possibly be the worst climax to a film of all time. The last of logic or intelligence would have been quickly forgiven had the film been at least fun. Where Taken succeeded was by not taking itself too seriously, keeping the plot simple and making sure Nissan always had a badass one-liner to hand. Colombian has seemingly aims a lot higher but fails miserably ending up a paste mess with a lead who really isn't all that likable or interesting. It's kind of hard to root for a woman who at one point smashes her neighbor's face into a table for no apparent reason, then seemingly blows up his apartment, presumably killing him in the process just to escape their FBI. Saldana must have thought this was a great idea, a strong female lead, and maybe even the beginning of a franchise. The end result isn't a complete career killer, but is definitely a step backwards. Olivier Megaton, fresh off his English language debut, The Transporter 3, hardly showers himself in glory either. The film is bathed in the same vaguely green hue that SE seems to have become the Goa for stylish thrillers, and the action scenes are so badly cut together it's hard to really tell who's hitting who, and if you even care anyway after witnessing the brutal murder of her parents at the hands of Colombian drug lords. Catalia Zoe Saldana grows up to become a ruthless assassin bent on revenge. That's the plot of Colombiana in a nutshell, and to be honest, there isn't much more substance than that to the story. At the core, the story is like Leon Light, essentially an empty version of the same plot carried further. Lucky for you, there is some solid ass kicking action to back up what the script by Luc Besson and Robert Mark Kamen lacks. Colombiana is strongest in the opening. Young Catalia Amanda Stenberg, instead of being the fragile broken child who just saw her parents butchered, as a badass. She stabs Marco Jordi, Molad boy, to an evil henchman in the hand, then LA gang of heavily armed cartel enforcers on an epic foot through the slums of Bobbitt, who knew 8-year-old girls were so adept at parkour. All on her own, she finds her way to Chicago, where her uncle Alo Cliff Curtis is a medium-level crime figure. Your Catalia is as strong as she needs to be, but also still a child, and with the single-minded focus that only a child has, declares that she is going to become a killer, with or without Emilio's help. Resourceful Land, determined you never doubt for a second that she'll succeed in her quest. Fast forward 15 years in, Catalia has become just what she set out to become, a highly killed killer with vengeance on her mind after a couple of nice scenes of her professional prowess, which take every opportunity to strip SAA down to the most minimal amount of clothing possible. However, even when fully clothed, you can pretty much always see her nipples. Seriously, SAA's nipples should get their own credit. The pace begins to sag. In fact, the middle of the movie is largely for forgettable, laughable at points, and is over serious to the point of absurdity. There are a bunch of unnecessary asides, including tangents about an FBI agent Lenny James hot on Cal's trail of vaguely corrupt and generic CIA agent Callum Blue, and far too many scenes of her making out with her hot painter hump buddy Michael Vaugh, alias in reality everything that doesn't directly revolve around action is probably best ignored, but things always look darkest just before the dawn, right? And I'll say it one more time, lucky for you, right as you're about to give up hope, Colombiana gets rad again, and we're talking rocket launchers, hand grenades, and a toe fight. Rat, there isn't much to think about too seriously in Colombiana. It's a simplistic look at culture trauma and a story full of caricatures and stereotypes at its best. However, the film is entertaining eye candy, and that's enough for me tonight. There are shark fights, intricate assassinations, lots of things to blow up, and an assortment of interchangeable goons with no larger purpose in life than to become cannon fodder for a hot killer in a bodysuit. Sure, it's cheesy and melodramatic, but what the hell, it's also a good time. I can't help but think that without S's presence, Colombian would never grace the multiplexes. This is a Kind of action movie that rarely gets a wide theatrical release anymore unless it happens to be directed by Sylvester Stallone and star a bunch style shootout, but rather than question the morality of her cold-blooded killer, Megaton orders SAA to shed a few tears and morally redeems her character through emotion. She is after all a woman and therefore subject to movie stereotypes such as sentimentality, but Besson did not choose a female protagonist solely to show a sensitive side despite a number of sappy scenes involving Kia's family and boyfriend. The movie's sexy chick with guns concept reaches its height when the protagonist escapes an FBI raid with little more than her undergarments and a massive assassin's rifle, the only obvious cliché missing from their overcooked Colombiana is an android Rena's female villainess to rival SA in the 1980s. Such a role would have been played by Bridget Neen, though he avoids this bit of formula. There are too many other cliché. Megaton, a ridiculous self-appointed moniker, doesn't employ action scenes, adopt that familiar over-edited shaky cam style that is spread like a disease through the majority of today's action movies. End cuts have a man on fire strobe effect that might cause an epileptic seizure. Everything that you expect to happen does, but the result is certainly more watchable than the majority of best and produced actioners, and will no doubt provide some mild diversion for action junkies. Colombiana is a movie that is best enjoyed if you prepare yourself for the unbelievable. It's hard not to start here when within the first 10 minutes of the movie I noticed a handful of things on the screen that I just thought were outright unbelievable. I got the impression that the filmmakers were making this movie for someone who doesn't have much common sense or a grasp on reality, or can just forego such things in the aspiration of entertainment. There are scenes in this movie that are so blatantly exaggerated that you can't help but feel borderline insulted by the writers for even conceiving the idea, let alone thinking that an audience will accept any unrealistic scenarios just for the purpose of progressing the story. Let me try to better explain. You know those moments when you watch a movie and you just a character do something so stupidly counterproductive to their own survival that you just rest your head in your hand until it's over. That's pretty much sums up the entirety of the opening scene of Colombiana. It's one thing to manufacture the progression of the story, but it's another thing to use and write characters as tools while they defy basic logic and common sense. For this purpose, I don't like the use of dumb down characters just for the sake of story progression, and I think it's a piss poor way and excuse to progress the story of a movie. Colombiana does have some redeeming qualities, as there were a few times I would have believed that I was watching a movie created by a young and lesser experienced Michael Bay with all the flash eye candy and explosions to complement the movie in the usual Bay way. Colombiana tries to mimic the action of some of the best revenge movies of our time, and at times actually pulls this off pretty well, but there are times when you notice that there's room for improvement. There are a few scenes where you can truly become immersed by the action and cinematography in front of you and how the movie progressed trace. And there are times when this movie hints at having a level of wit and intelligence that captures your attention in such a way that the movie truly picks up and hints at better things too. Come will follow along with Cat Al as she scales buildings' ventilation systems, creeps down hallways in a sexy and fine fashion that delivers a cool mix of DC's Catwoman and Metal Gear's Solid Snake. Her intelligence in the art of Espionage and her tactics really add to a level of entertainment with the entire movie as you see her systematically and intelligently take on or assassinating individual in the most ludicrously guarded places. You'll definitely have a few moments that make you sit on the edge of your seat just to find out how she actually pulls off these stunts and how she eventually makes a mistake so Sonnet channels her best Angelina Jolie in this movie. Seriously, she has the effeminate, feline and seductive down to a science and produces a performance for a character that's an amalgamation of Laura Croft, Evelyn Salton Fox, but you can't help but feel that the creators oversexed this movie to compensate with the weak writing. Thankfully that is in fact the case, as her sex appeal reaches new heights in this movie while tiptoeing around any actual revelation of nudity. The film still delivers plenty of the sexiness that voyeurs will still have their rewind moments and post on the internet what minute mark to tune in for other perverts. Overall, the movie is a mindless platform to introduce and test Zoe Saldana as a draw and leading woman. She's definitely shows that she's capable of both, despite the inherent weaknesses throughout the film without much fault of her own, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing her continue to establish herself as a leading woman in sex symbol. The movie had me upset at the thought that I watched this in the theater and would recommend that others instead wait for a home release, but signing her victims with a lipstick drawing of her floral namesake, solidly produced if slightly generic English language pick, should do mid-range biz in France where it bowed July 27th and OK number stat side where it goes out August 26th, rather than adopting a tired flashback heavy approach. Megaton and screenwriters Besson and regular collaborator Robert Mark Kamen let Kalia childhood trauma play out up front in an audacious half-hour prologue. Said in 1992 budget, still a little girl, Catalia Amanda Stenberg witnesses the assassination of her next often by crime boss Don Luis B. Bonnets and his vicious right-hand man Marco Giordiola. Catalia decides she wants to become a killer when she grows up so she can properly exact revenge on Luis Marco and their gang. 15 years later, played by SAA, she's a pretty impressive contract killer working for her Chicago-based uncle Amello Cliff Curtis. The first assignment odds get to see her and isn't elaborately staged hit inside a prison in an intricately staged and executed 10-minute plus set piece that reps one of the picks to action highlights. The second is a mano-mano fight in a Henda bathroom man intentionally messy a sequence that injects a welcome dose of reality and real danger into the proceedings, something lacking in the film's more bombastic and generic shootouts and explosions. Much of the viewer's investment will depend on his or her concern for Kia's plight, and this is where Saw's contribution is key. Despite being a ruthless killer with a killer bob and a predilection for skimpy tight fitting apparel, costume designer Olivier Barat seems to have taken a K from the Avatar THS motion capture bodysuit. She not only exudes sexiness but also generates a certain amount of sympathy. Sell Dawn's handful of scenes with her artist BF Michael Va, who has no clue what she does for a living, help humanize the otherwise solitary killing machine in 310 confrontations in a schoolyard, in a library with a mellow, and during a home visit with the FBI agent on her tail. Lenny James nicely Jutus plotting and characterization between action setups like all action picks from Bess's Europa Corp, including Helmer Megaton's The Transporter 3. Colombiana is Saley assembled locations including Mexico they're us and France and Patrick. Duran production design are expertly showcased in Roma Laura suit dappled. Widescreen lensing editing and score are unobtrusive the work of stunt coordinator Michelle Julian Tack in the Transporter films and fight choreographer Alan Figlar the Born Identity Largo. Winch is pro but has a greatest hits feel rather than its own identity. Remember, you read it here first. To star as Born, Amanda Stenberg steals the entire film, which isn't bad, considering she's only 10 years old and is on screen for only the opening 15 minutes or so. She plays the lead Cat Alia, who is a 99-year-old witnesses her parents' murders by Marco Jordi MOA, evil henchman of evil drug lord Don Luis B. Bonds, but Mom and Pop had it coming anyway because every Colombian in this film is a drug dealer and slash or killer and slash or gangster of some kind. Not only does Amanda display genuine terror, I wonder how director Olivier Megaton got her to do that. Threatened to put a puppy in a blender. You sees his cute little baby puppy doggy and let you see how I put in the how you say blender, but she's handy with a hunting knife to putting her mark on Marco before going on a rooftop parkour run for her life, dodging bullets, a motorbike, a parkour pursuer, and various SUVs. It's all breathtaking stuff that makes you read the end crawl really carefully to see if any little girls were harmed in the making of this movie. Cat Alia then makes her way to the U.S. Embassy in a nice touch. This pukes up a micro SD card, a parting gift from Daddy, which contains some kind of secret information that gets her instant citizenship and is flown to the States. She then dodges her handler and makes her way to Chicago and Uncle Alo Cliff Curtis, who being Colombian is also some kind of gangster. We know this because we're introduced to him beating some guy to a pulp in a container back in the safe and loving arms of family. Cat Alia decides she wants to be a professional killer and waste everyone who had anything to do with the deaths of her parents. That'll be all of Colombia then. But first she has to go school, and after bribing the principal to overlook Kalia's late start and presumed missing grades, Uncle Lello convinces her education is the best way by pulling a gun in broad daylight and shooting a passing car full of holes and causing it to crash. Since nobody witnesses anything, he is able to calmly put it away and explain that whilst anyone can do that and presumably not get caught ever, the 3RS will give her a shot in life. So far so brilliant, but then we fast forward 15 years and get Zoe Saa, whose vehicle this is. It's not that MSAA doesn't look good, especially after her appearance at the Avatar press conference in Berlin, where she appeared to be promoting anorexia as a fashion statement. Nor is it her athleticism, but in what is a standard Luc Besson Olivier Megaton crazy name Crazy Guy Mayhem movie she is called upon to act. It's not only out of place, but her gamut runs all the way from A to not quite B instead of a 95-minute way stem up. We also get a completely unconvincing subplot love affair involving her and artist Danny Delaney, Michael Vaugh, and is it just me or do all his paintings feature penises in some shape or form? He knows nothing about her, and certainly not that she's a serial killer with 22, not just to her credit only Colombians, of course, because they all have it coming on behalf of Uncle A. Mello. This results in the film being at least quarter of an hour longer than it needs, and breaking the action when it needs to keep roaring. Liam N. didn't need any kind of emotional claptrap and take. And so why here? So what if Cat Alia is torture, damaged, etc.? Do we care? No. This is essentially a cartoon film with live actors. Of course, Cal is really After Marco and Don Luis them having been conveniently located to the U.S. by the CIA ostensibly because Don Lu is in informant but allowed to carry on being major drug dealers. Just work with me here, okay? Like I say, this is a cartoon at heart, so to draw him out she works her way through his people, drawing a large orchid on the bodies of her victims. It looks like 5 penises joined up, by the way, replicating a necklace he gave to her father before ordering him wasted, in which he gave to her before being wasted. Don Luis knows what that means. The orchid, that is not the penises. Meantime, FBI agent James Ross Lenny James is on Kalia's tail for earlier smuggling herself into a high-security jail and taking out a really nasty piece of Colombian work thanks to a helpful orchid recognizing clean in an audible groan-inducing moment in that penis drawing artist guy of hers. The cops and feds get a solid lead on her. QA Leonic shoot out and chase through her apartment block from which she escapes. Not that Don La hasn't been busy either. He's taken out Uncle Amello and the latter's mother. This gives Miss S.A. another chance to act, which she seizes with both hands and tosses out the window. I'm sorry, she can't. She really can't do it in the hands of AAL actress such as Angelina Jolie. Waiting for Anna Stenberg to have gone rough puberty. These extra scenes would have worked and added some depth to the character, but S.A. can't carry it. Just paint her blue and have done with it. Fair Carissa Catalia now goes on her merry way, finally tracking down Don Luis via threatening Agent Ross, who leads her to the CIA handler who, prompted by a bullet through the window, spills Don Luis' whereabouts. The rest of this by the numbers going through the motions film as her taking out Don Lee. Hired help who, unlike her, are not bullet or bomb-proof until it's time to deal with Marco using mostly a hand towel, and finally Don Luis using 2 dogs that have been trained to eat on command. Pretty cool. But sadly we don't get to see it. It's not that Colombiana is bad, but nor is it particularly interesting. It's all rather root-like and overtired and bored hooker, giving yet another hand job. Nobody apart from the amazing Amanda Stenberg and those technicians, extras and stunt men hoping to get their next gig is really giving of their best, and Zoe Saldana, despite her clearly visible efforts and exertions and innate hotness, is out of her depth, handicapped by her limited acting ability in a script that unfairly calls on her to show some. Colombiana 2 in 2025 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Colombiana 2225 brings back the fierce Catalia Restrepo portrayed by Zoe Saldana on another journey of vengeance and justice following the events of the first film, where Catalia took down the men responsible for her parents' deaths. She now faces an even more dangerous challenge, a deadly syndicate that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Plot overview: the story begins with Catalia trying to lead a quieter life, having partially escaped the violent shadows of her past. She's found a small semblance of peace, living under an identity in a remote village in South America. However, rumors of a powerful crime syndicate known as the Silver FWNN begins spreading. This syndicate, notorious for trafficking in large-scale corruption, has a reputation for wiping out entire communities that resist them. When the Silver Fang arrives in Kalia's village, its enforcers inadvertently bring her back into a world she was hoping to leave behind. Kalia's conflict: the Silver Fang quickly realizes they've made a grave mistake in provoking. The movie follows Catalia Restrepo, a young girl growing up in Colombia, Her life changes forever when she witnesses the brutal murder of her parents by a drug cartel led by Don Luis, who works with corrupt government agents. Before dying, Catalia's father gives her a memory card containing important information and tells her to escape. She manages to flee to the United States, where she finds her uncle Emilio Restrepo in Chicago. Emilio is involved in criminal activities, and he reluctantly raises her. Pistol growing into an assassin. As she grows up, Catalia becomes a highly trained assassin. While working as a hit woman for her uncle, she secretly uses her skills to hunt down the people responsible for her parents' deaths. She leaves a signature at every kill, a drawing of a Cattleya orchid, as a message to her enemies and a clue meant to draw out Don Luis. Detective: The investigation. An FBI agent, James Ross, begins tracking the mysterious assassin. As Catalia gets closer to her targets, the authorities and the cartel both start closing in on her. Crossed swords: final confrontation. Eventually, Don Luis discovers that Catalia is alive and sends his men after her and her family. After intense action and several dangerous encounters, Catalia infiltrates his heavily guarded mansion. Using her intelligence and combat skills, she eliminates his guards and finally kills Don Luis, achieving the revenge she has sought since childhood. Colombiana follows Catalia Restrepo, a young girl in Colombia whose life is shattered when a drug lord, Don Luis, has her parents killed. Before dying, her father gives her crucial information and helps her escape to the United States, where she grows up under the care of her uncle, Emilio Restrepo. As she matures, Catalia secretly trains to become a skilled assassin, using her uncle's criminal connections to gain experience while planning revenge. As an adult, she carries out professional hits but leaves behind a signature orchid symbol to send a message to her parents' killer. Her actions attract the attention of the FBI, particularly James Ross, while also provoking the cartel into hunting her down. After a series of intense confrontations, Catalia tracks down Don Luis, infiltrates his compound, and finally kills him, avenging her family. In the end, she disappears into the shadows, having achieved her goal but remaining a solitary and dangerous figure. Colombiana tells the story of Catalia Restrepo, a young girl growing up in Bogotá, Colombia. She lives with her parents, who are secretly involved with dangerous criminal connections. Despite the tension around her, Catalia dreams of becoming strong and independent, unaware of how soon she will be forced into that reality. Her life is shattered when cartel boss Don Luis orders the murder of her parents after her father tries to break away from the organization. In a violent attack, Catalia witnesses their deaths, an event that traumatizes her but also plants the seed of revenge deep within her. Before dying, her father gives her a memory card containing sensitive information and instructs her to escape. Using her courage and quick thinking, Catalia evades the killers and makes her way to the United States, carrying both the evidence and her pain. She arrives in Chicago and finds her uncle, Emilio Restrepo, who is involved in organized crime. At first reluctant, Emilio takes her in. However, Catalia makes it clear that she wants to become a killer, driven entirely by her desire for revenge. As she grows older, Catalia trains intensely in combat, weapons, and strategy. She becomes highly disciplined and skilled, eventually working as a professional assassin for her uncle. Despite this, her true mission remains personal, finding and killing Don Luis. To draw out her enemies, Catalia leaves behind a signature at each assassination, a drawing of a Cattleya orchid. This becomes her symbolic message, linking her killings together and signaling that her revenge is slowly unfolding. Her actions soon attract the attention of law enforcement, especially FBI agent James Ross, who begins investigating the mysterious assassin. As the case develops, the pressure on Cattleya increases from both the authorities and the criminals she targets. Meanwhile, Don Luis eventually realizes that Cattleya is still alive and seeking revenge. In response, he orders his men to hunt her down, putting not only her life at risk but also the lives of those close to her, including her uncle. This leads to a series of intense confrontations, as Cattleya uses her intelligence and combat skills to survive ambushes and attacks. She carefully plans her moves, staying one step ahead while closing in on her ultimate target. In the final act, Catalina infiltrates Don Luis's heavily guarded compound. After eliminating his defenses with precision and determination, she finally confronts and kills him, avenging her parents. With her mission complete, she disappears into anonymity, forever shaped by her past and the path she chose. Colombiana centers on Catalina Restrepo, a young girl raised in Bogotá, Colombia. Her father is involved in criminal dealings, which puts the entire family in danger. Although she is still a child, Catalina already shows signs of intelligence and toughness, traits that will later define her life. One night, cartel leader Don Luis orders the execution of her parents after her father attempts to leave the organization. The attack is sudden and brutal, and Catalina witnesses everything. This traumatic moment becomes the turning point of her life, filling her with grief and a powerful desire for revenge. Before dying, her father gives her a memory card with valuable information and urges her to escape. Using her courage and instincts, Catalina manages to evade the killers. She travels alone to the United States, holding on to the only thing her father left her and the promise of vengeance. She arrives in Chicago, where she finds her uncle, Emilio Restrepo, a man involved in organized crime. Though hesitant at first, Emilio agrees to take her in. Catalina quickly reveals her goal: she wants to become a trained killer so she can avenge her parents. Over the years, Catalina trains relentlessly. She becomes highly skilled in weapons, combat, and strategy. As an adult, she works as a professional assassin for her uncle, carrying out hits with precision. However, her real mission remains hidden. She is using every job as practice for her ultimate revenge. To send a message and track her progress, she leaves behind a signature symbol at each crime scene, a drawing of a Cattleya orchid. This becomes her identity, a silent signal to those who might recognize its meaning, especially the man she is hunting. Her actions begin to attract attention from law enforcement, particularly FBI agent James Ross, who starts piecing together the pattern behind the killings. As he gets closer, Catalina must become even more careful to avoid capture. At the same time, Don Luis eventually learns that Catalina survived and is targeting his network. Seeing her as a serious threat, he orders his men to find and eliminate her. This raises the stakes, as Catalina is no longer just hunting, she is also being hunted. Danger escalates when the cartel targets people close to her, trying to draw her out. Catalina is forced into direct confrontations, using her training and intelligence to survive deadly situations while continuing her mission. In the final phase of her plan, Catalina tracks Don Luis to his secure compound. She infiltrates the heavily guarded location with precision, eliminating his guards one by one. Her patience and skill allow her to reach him despite the overwhelming security. She finally confronts Don Luis face to face and kills him, achieving the revenge she has pursued for years. However, victory comes at a cost, as her life has been shaped entirely by violence and loss. In the end, Catalina disappears, leaving behind no clear trace. Though she has completed her mission, she remains a solitary figure, forever marked by her past and destined to live in the shadows. Years after vanishing into the shadows, Catalina Restrepo lives under a new identity in a quiet European city. The world believes she is dead, but her past still breathes in silence. Every night, she trains, sharper and colder than before, knowing peace was never meant for someone like her. 2. One evening, a coded message appears on her secure device, a symbol she hasn't seen in years. It belongs to the cartel that destroyed her family. But this time, it carries a terrifying truth: someone has been hunting her, and they know she's alive. 3. Meanwhile, in Colombia, a ruthless new crime lord named Rafael Viteri rises to power. Unlike the old generation, he is smarter, digital, and more brutal. He has one mission: erase every loose end from the past, including Catalina. 4. Catalina returns to Colombia, stepping back into the land of blood and memories. Every street reminds her of her parents. But she is no longer the frightened girl, she is the storm that follows death. 5. She reconnects with Emilio, her uncle, who once protected her. He warns her that this new enemy is different, he doesn't fear her legend. In fact, he wants to break it publicly, to prove no assassin is untouchable. 6. As Catalia begins her hunt, she discovers something shocking. Raphael was once connected to the same network that trained her. He knows her methods, her mindset, and even her weaknesses. This is no ordinary enemy, this is a mirror of herself. 7. A deadly game begins. Explosions, assassinations, and psychological traps unfold across cities. Raphael targets innocent people linked to Catalia, forcing her to make impossible choices, revenge or protection. 8. In a brutal twist, Emilio is captured and executed as bait. This breaks something inside Catalia. The mission is no longer survival, it becomes a blood vow. She decides to end the cartel, no matter the cost. 9. The final showdown takes place in an abandoned fortress deep in the jungle. Outnumbered and wounded, Catalia fights through waves of enemies. In the end, she confronts Raphael in a raw, emotional battle, skill versus strategy, rage versus control. 10. Catalia kills Raphael, but not before he reveals one last truth: she was never the final target. There are bigger powers behind everything. As she disappears once again into the shadows, a new war begins, because legends don't die, they evolve. Here's a 20-paragraph cinematic story for Colombiana 2, Blood Vow, written in a Hollywood style but easy-to-use format. Backhand index pointing down. 1. Years after her brutal revenge mission, Catalia lives in silence, hiding in the shadows. The world believes she disappeared, but assassins like her never truly retire. 2. In a quiet European city, she has built a new identity, working as an art restorer. Her life seems calm, but her instincts never sleep. 3. One night, she receives a mysterious package containing a single orchid, the symbol she once used to mark her kills. 4. Inside the package is a photo of her childhood home, recently taken. Someone knows who she is, and where she came from. 5. Catalia realizes this is not just a threat. It's a message. Someone from her past has returned. 6. As she begins investigating, she uncovers a powerful underground cartel rebuilding the empire her parents once tried to destroy. 7. The cartel is now led by a cold and calculated woman named Isabella Cruz, someone who knows Catalia's history in terrifying detail. 8. Isabella sends a warning: you killed my family. Now I will erase yours, even the memories. 9. Catalia understands this is personal. This isn't business. It's war. 10. She travels back to Colombia, the land of her past, where every street holds pain, anger, and unfinished business. 11. Old allies refuse to help her, fearing the cartel's power. But one former contact agrees, to settle a debt. 12. Together, they discover that Isabella is not just seeking revenge, she is building a global network of assassins. 13. Catalia begins dismantling the network piece by piece, leaving her signature orchid at every crime scene once again. 14. The media starts calling her the Ghost Orchid, spreading fear across the cartel's operations. 15. Isabella grows furious and kidnaps someone close to Catalia, a young girl she had secretly been protecting. 16. Now, the mission becomes more than revenge. It becomes redemption. 17. Catalia storms Isabella's heavily guarded fortress, taking down guards with precision, speed, and ruthless skill. 18. Inside, she faces Isabella in a tense, emotional showdown filled with rage, loss, and truth. 19. In the final moment, Catalia has the chance to kill her, but chooses a different path, breaking the cycle of vengeance. 20. As dawn rises, Catalia disappears once again, no longer just an assassin, but a legend, leaving behind only one final orchid. The night was silent, but danger was awake. Catalia walked through the shadows like a ghost reborn. Years after her revenge, she had disappeared from the world. No one knew where she lived, or if she was still alive, but peace was never meant for someone like her. Blood always finds its way back to in a remote European city. A powerful cartel leader was assassinated in broad daylight. The hit was clean, precise, too perfect. It reminded the underworld of only one name, Catalia, but this time, it wasn't her. Someone was copying her style and sending a message. The symbol of a rare orchid was left behind at the crime scene. Catalia saw the news from afar, her instincts immediately alert. "This is an imitation," she whispered. "This is war." Meanwhile, a new player emerged, El Silencio, a mysterious assassin who never spoke. He had one mission: lure Catalia out of hiding, and he was willing to burn the entire underworld to do it. Catalia returned, stepping back into a world she once destroyed. Every move she made was watched. Every contact she trusted was compromised. Old allies were dead. New enemies had risen. The game had changed, but so had she. She was no longer running. She was hunting. As she tracked the killings, a pattern began to form. Every target had a connection to her past. This wasn't random. This was personal. Flashbacks of her childhood haunted her. The night her parents were murdered, the pain, the rage, the promise she made: "I will never be weak again." But this time, her enemy knew her better than she knew herself. El Silencio finally made contact, without words, only actions. A message left in blood: "You created me." Catalia froze. This wasn't just an enemy, this was her past coming back to life. She dug deeper and uncovered the truth. Years ago, one survivor escaped the massacre she caused. A child, who grew up watching her as both savior and monster. That child became El Silencio. He wasn't just copying her, he was evolving her legacy, and now, he wanted to destroy the original. The final confrontation took place in an abandoned cathedral. Rain poured like judgment from the sky, bullets echoed like thunder as mentor in creation faced each other. In the end, Catalia made a choice: break the cycle or continue the bloodline. As the silence fell, only one truth remained: legends don't die, they transform.